one of the rules that I throw out are what I would call these toxic rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
A toxic rule being a rule that takes away from who I am and takes away from who you are. It's a rule that doesn't enhance our connection, but diminishes it.
Right.
So any rule that's toxic like that are what I would call those unenforceable rules that really damage any relationship, right? Erode the relationship.
It starts right here, deep in your heart. Start right here. Oh, that's where it starts. Right here. We look to your heart. It's always and only starting right here.
Thom Rutledge and Dr. Alan Berger bring over 90 years of clinical experience to this important podcast, and they offer you a guarantee. You will gain something of personal value from each episode. And now, what matters most.
It starts right here. Start right here.
Welcome back to, hopefully back if you've been listening to us before, and if not, welcome for the first time to Start Right Here podcast with me. I'm Thom Rutledge, and with me is Dr. Alan Berger, my partner in crime. Alan, how you doing?
I'm doing better this week. My recovery is starting to feel more complete at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to welcome everyone back. I was hoping that nobody took what we did last week personally.
That's right. Well, and when you say your recovery is doing better, for somebody who hasn't been listening, I want to say that he's actually been sober the whole time. He's talking. Alan's been tested positive for COVID a while back, and he's been battling not being able to taste things for one thing. So.
Now, you know what's interesting? I do feel now like I need to wear a scarlet letter C. I test because I tell you, it's the weirdest feeling when I go out and around people. Mm-hmm. It's strange. It's like, you need to know I had COVID.
Stand back.
Or whatever you need to do. It's like, I hope I'm not, the CDC tells me based on guidelines, I've exceeded those, that I'm no longer infectious, but I mean, it's weird. I feel that.
No,
that's
I've talked to people that basically have had it, and they say it feels like like if you're in some sort of game we used to play when we were kids of tag or something like that, and it's like once you're out of the game, it's like you just kind of are, so I'm out. Nothing applies to me anymore. And they said they got to remember that no, they're not out of the game just because they've already had it. They still have to participate.
That's right. That's the truth, right? You're not out of it. I mean, you may have a little period of, where you're immune because of your antibodies, but they don't even know how long that lasts. Could be 60 days, could be 90. There's been a few people who've been infected, so I'm still wearing my mask.
We had some friends that she and her husband both had it, and when they got the all clear, they're just much more social than I am, and they said, well, y'all come on over now, we're really safe. I go like, no. Those antibodies are not making me feel a lot better. It's like, I'm glad you're healthier, but I'm going to stay. So if it works for you, Alan, I want to take off today and just kind of pick up a couple of things that we left off last time.
No, I listen. I think it's such an important topic about not taking things personally, and I think that let's do it. I think you had some more to say, and I may have more to say.
Really? You may have more to say.
I may not. I don't know. Right now, I may or may not. I want to reserve the right to not say anything else about it, but I might have a few things. I'll let Patrick say a few things.
Toward the last, Patrick, I think, indicated last time that maybe the COVID had kind of inspired you a little bit. You had a lot of extra energy, but no, there was just a couple of things that. I admit, I acknowledge that I am the king of disclaimer. Like I said it last time, it's like if editors have worked with me before, said you cannot put at the beginning of every paragraph of your book, this paragraph may not apply to you. So it's a very.
It's like somebody's going to not want to read the book.
Well, that's like a friend of mine told me one time when I was complaining about book sales not being what I wanted. He said, do you realize in every book you write that you tell everybody how hard this stuff is? He said, maybe you should not emphasize how hard it is. Start. One easy step to banish fear from your life forever is my next book. Is how to lose 100 pounds by eating 3 dozen donuts a day.
I think that you may have touched on something that I felt. One of the reasons that it took me so long to start writing was I could see things from so many different perspectives.
Yes.
And I always had a rough time saying this is the way it is, right? Yeah. And I also have that disclaimer. I said, listen, what I say is what I say. You've got to decide if it fits for you. This is just my thinking about it at this point in time. And I reserve the right to change my mind in future writings and say that everything I've just said in this writing is wrong.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I actually even tell people that I'm talking in all settings, but tell my clients that I said, some people process things inwardly, and my wife is that way. She's
like that. From what you've said.
The speakers are on outside for me. It's like if you want to know what I'm thinking, just stand near me, and it's like you're going to hear what I'm thinking. And so what I tell my clients is, so I'm thinking as I'm talking. So the idea is it's not unusual for me to say something. We've done it here a zillion times. It's like, where I'll come back around and go like, oh, you know what I said a minute ago? No, I don't believe that anymore. I've changed my mind, or you said something that made me think of this, or I just remembered this. And I love to do that. And I'd like, I do know I need to not be disclaiming everything all the time, but I do want to be sure that, and I think you and I have this in common too, is that I want to be sure that people do get that one of the most important things we can teach is that basically one size doesn't fit all. We don't sell this stuff off the rack. This is all needs to be tailored to you. And, the program even has the words for that. And it's in one of its wonderful cliches of take what's helpful, leave what's not. And it's like, now, when we get to that, though, however, one of the things, if you're going to really be working with somebody, whether you be working with them inside the 12-step program or in therapy, is very often, and you and I both have experienced this in our lives, we will initially say, well, that doesn't apply to me. But what we do is this kind of is a good segue into what I wanted to say as a follow-up to last time, is when we talk about saying no to unenforceable rules, I wanted to cover sort of the other end of that continuum for people that basically, because I consider this one of the things is like, I don't want to be dealing. I had to learn how to say no to all those erroneous, unenforceable rules, or what I call the policy manual for my family. It include things like don't dare hurt anybody's feelings under any circumstance. Oh, by the way, you can read somebody's mind. So if you see a disappointed face on them, you can go ahead and assume that, I needed to be able to just break the hell out of that stuff. Yeah. But there was also a lot of rules that, as an alcoholic, and then later a recovering alcoholic and a recovering asshole, a lot of rules I had to learn. Yeah. It's like so it depends on where. I guess that's the main thing I wanted to say. It depends on where you are on the continuum. Or there's so many continuums, but I've worked with people before who basically have been victims, and I don't mean victims in a most negative way, but they didn't know that was there, but they have been just beat down by these rules all their lives. I've got to be the best person ever. I've got to, it's like, no matter what, I have to do this. I've worked with some of those people. I would celebrate them breaking any rule. If they told me they robbed a bank, I'd have a hard time not celebrating, thinking, well, way to go, because they need to break the rules. But I know for me, one of the things I got in couples therapy more than anything else were some wonderful therapists, a couple of them in particular that and women out there will appreciate the fact they were women that basically were able to very honestly get in my face and just go like, no, that's not the way you do that. That's not the way you treat another person. And, when and usually she was, I'm thinking of one particular therapist, she was usually confronting me with one of the things that I would have classified as me just trying to be helpful. I was trying to be helpful. Well, it turned out, as to use your term you use a lot, I was a fucking control freak, and it's like, I didn't think I was. I thought I was trying to be helpful. It's like, and I was pick. Dee would say in therapy, she would say, well, I feel beat up. And I go like, well, I'm trying to be helpful. It's like, and Mary Elizabeth, our therapist, would say, well, you're not helpful, Thom. And, but I go like, and I think men have this more than women. I may be wrong about that, but we like intention to count for a lot. But I don't mean to hurt your feelings, and what I learned from that was that's good, because if you meant to hurt my feelings, that would be an entirely different problem. But I'm glad that. But the other thing is, you also need to learn. I was learning empathy. I was learning that if I want to know how somebody else is feeling about something I'm doing, I needed to learn to listen to those people. So in that way, when you're talking about if say, for instance, in the days where if Dee was saying something that was hurtful to me, it was more complex than just not taking it personally. It was because I really needed to listen to the content. I really needed to understand what she was saying, because there were changes. So I've spent I'll show you what I've done all week. I've spent the week trying to kind of nutshell this. And what I realized, what I wanted to say was, when you don't take things personally, it doesn't mean that doesn't mean you don't care what anybody says.
That's right.
And that's the part that I got as a distinction with my little conversation with my version of you in my head over the week was I was saying to my version of Alan, well, yeah, but are you saying you just don't care what anybody thinks? And your answer, by the way, by my version of you, which I think is pretty accurate, is no, that's not what I mean. And I'll check it with you today, but it's like that's what I think I was reacting to was the idea that it was just like, I'm just not going to care what people say to me or about me. But in fact, it's not that. It's that whatever's happening, I need to understand that how they're doing that is coming from them and what they're dealing with, but that does not relieve me of the responsibility of taking what they're saying. If there's somebody that's important to me in a relationship, and understanding there's going to be information in there for me to work with. Does that make some sense?
A lot of sense. Yes.
Okay. Good.
No. To elaborate on that even more, I mean, it's such an important point, because when I say, like you pointed out, it doesn't mean I don't care. What it means is I'm trying to not let what somebody else is saying be more important than what I think.
Yes.
At the same time. See, that's that I'm trying to keep them at the same level. I'm holding my hands up like they're equal across. Yeah, I don't want to make that person, what they're saying, less important than me and saying they're wrong. I'm just saying that I can see by what they're saying more about themselves than about me. And that helps me navigate the relationship a lot better.
Right. Well, and even more than the equality. Ultimately, I was writing about that earlier today with some stuff that I'm putting to paper, and it's one of my little nutshells I was bringing back up, which was I respect your opinion, I trust my judgment. Yeah, so the idea is respecting somebody else's opinion does not mean agreement. What it means is I can respect that that's your perspective, but what you're talking about and what we're talking about right now is the idea that if I'm in a relationship with somebody by choice, that I want to be in a relationship. There's a lot of different stuff if we're talking about hearsay or what other people are saying about me and all that stuff that I can discount. But what I want to be able to do is, even if I'm going to decide that's not the case, and there are times like that. I mean, there are times even today that I would say that if my wife were to tell you something that she thinks about me, then I would go like, well, that actually that's not really the way it is for me. It's like, that's still there. It's like, but in the old days, it would be, I would feel like I would need to get her to change her mind about me because I was, and this, I think is what you're saying is because I was using her definition of me, yes, or her perception of me as if it overrode mine.
Right.
And I get the final say, and and I guess the piece I'm wanting to be sure we're emphasizing is, and I want to have a lot of integrity about how I'm doing that. So, which includes if people have things to say to me that are hard for me to hear, I'll still listen to them. And it's like, and I'm not going, and I won't discount them out of hand, do that. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to give my power away to that person.
Yeah.
Okay.
And keeping that see, this is very important discussion. What you're bringing up now, it just triggers so many thoughts. But let me go with this last thing you just said. So let's say somebody is saying something to me that's hard, and I don't trust their motive in it. So I might say to them something like, "Look, I'd like to be able to consider what you're saying, and right now I'm hung up because I think you're just mad at me and want to hurt me." I need to just say that before I can. Right. So I'm still honoring my integrity by doing that. You see, I'm honoring myself in the relationship and creating some space for a dialogue about it.
I was gonna say, you're also to do that. You're also being respectful of the relationship because you're being honest.
Yes, and I'm giving them a chance to clarify. I could be wrong about that. Like, I'm open to being that maybe it's my issue that, I am taking it personally, or I don't trust people saying things like that because of some rule in my head about it. But I think by staying that straight and clear with someone, that there's a chance to talk through these things in a healthy way that are productive for the relationship, that help the relationship take another step forward or make another deposit in the relationship's emotional bank account or whatever it is by how we deal with these things. And that's what you're saying. Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up here is because I think we need to also get into this. See, the rule, so one of the rules that I throw out are what I would call these toxic rules, right? A toxic rule being a rule that takes away from who I am and takes away from who you are. It's a rule that doesn't enhance our connection, but diminishes it.
Right.
So any rule that's toxic like that are what I would call those unenforceable rules that really damage any relationship, right? Erode the relationship.
Now, there's also unnecessary rules.
Yeah, now. There's a whole nother set of rules out there. Things like, I want to honor my integrity. That's a good rule for me. And the way Dr. Kempler said it to me, Al, you can have whatever rules you want for you, as long as you're paying attention to whether they're of value to you and help you live the life you want to live. Your problem comes in when you lay those on somebody else and expect them to follow. He says, so just make that distinction. We're not talking about that all rules in an absolute sense are terrible.
Right.
One of the authors that I like a lot, Dr. Harriet Lerner. She wrote Dance of Anger, Dance of Intimacy, and several other books. The Dance of, there was a third one. I forgot what it was. But she also came out with a rule about the Book of Rules for Marriages. And she's got 101 rules in it. A lot of fucking rules. But what she did in the beginning was she said, look, what I'm trying to do here is to throw out some ideas about rules that would help a relationship function better. So things like, it's always a good idea to respect differences. Things like that. Yeah. And they're real. And, I think what we could do next show, we're going to have some guests the next couple of weeks, but as soon as we don't have a guest, let's have a whole show about healthy rules.
Okay, but also if one of those guests just bores us, we could just start into that then.
Now,
I shouldn't have said. See, I shouldn't have said that out lound. I'm telling you,
right thought. I mean, it's what I thought as well. By the way, but now we set up a scene.
No, and by the way, we have some very good guests coming. They're not going to be boring.
They're not going to be boring at all.
But, no, I like that.
But I do think, look, because we've given a lot of emphasis on the negative side of this.
By the way, I wrote a book on this. It's called What Love Is.
That is a great book, by the way.
Thank you.
I would endorse that with 5 stars to anybody. I've spent much time with that on the John and enjoyed it a lot.
It is written for that. It's like, I write books. People call them gift books. People call them coffee table books. Like, let's just be honest. They're made, and it's like you read, but I tell women a lot of times, and this is me abandoning our gender for a moment, but it's like going like, if you have a husband who doesn't read and definitely is not going to read self-help books, buy one of these books and put it in the bathroom. They'll read it, and they're short entries, but it's not specifically rules, but it is an exploration.
It's talking about
what works,
and what is love, and what is it about, and
it's what you said about Harriet Lerner too. Is the idea of what is what we're really looking for so much in all this work that we do is what works.
Yes,
what helps.
Yes,
I mean it is the most. The longer I've done this. And I bet you would agree with this as well. The longer I've done this, the more grounded and practical I have become about how to individualize this stuff to people's work. I go like, the question will come up is what I'll stop and ask frequently. It's like, is what we're doing helping to you? And if they say yes, I go, okay, well, tell me a little bit about how it's helping. And sometimes we don't know right away how it's helping, but it's like, it's really good because we not only learn from how we do things wrong, we learn from how we do things right. So if we're doing something different, if you're being helped by therapy, it may mean you have a brilliant therapist like us, but it also means, it has to mean that you are taking this and putting it into play in your life.
It's so interesting. I was doing a workshop just beforehand, and this one person so I presented for about 35-40 minutes, and then this other person came on, and this person writes to me privately, says, my God, she goes, this is so boring, I'm not getting anything out of what he's saying, and can't you just stop the discussion and stuff like this? And she says, it's not helpful, I need tips on what would be helpful for me and all this. And I'm smiling to myself, and I wrote back and I say, it sounds like this is some stuff that you could work out best with somebody in a therapy session or something, or other than this kind of format really doesn't lend itself to that kind of intensive work with someone. And she writes back, well, I've done this, and I've got a PhD from UCLA, and I've got 2 masters. And I thought to myself, well, I missed it because initially what she did showed me what's wrong. She made this guy responsible for what she was getting out of it. And instead of being able to use whatever he was saying in whatever way, because I listened to him too, sometimes he meandered, there was some real jewels in what he said as well. But what you got was the spirit behind it. This guy really cared. He was really trying to share parts of his recovery. And when you listen to that, that's what moved me, not necessarily the content of what he was saying, but his spirit behind this whole thing. It was right. But I can see it was right there for her, right? Her rules were, you got to feed me. You got to make me not bored. Everybody else is responsible for how I feel. And when it's not happening, I'm going to complain about it.
I mean, Alan, I tell you what, it's that you've set me up perfectly to tell I have several stories I like to tell about my first sponsor in AA, but this is my favorite. And it was after I'd gone to a few meetings, and I came out, and I, with thoroughly offended, I said, those guys are full of bullshit, man. And he just started laughing. He just laughed and laughed. He said, it's a room full of alcoholics, Rutledge. He said, of course they're full of bullshit.
It wasn't the think tank at Rand Corporation.
He said something to me that changed I'm sure, hindsight fixes these things for us. I'm sure it took a while for it to sink in, but it feels like with looking back that it changed my life forever. And it did. And eventually he said, your job, he said, the bullshit's everywhere. He said, your job is to go in there and find. It reminded me of Curly, the Jack Palance character on City Slicker. Go find the one thing. He didn't say the one thing, but hold his finger up. But he said, "You go find." I think I've heard you use this term before. You go find the gem. You know, you go find the gem in there. He said, and it may be something somebody says to you, or walking into the room, getting a cup of coffee, maybe something in the meeting. But he said, if you can't find one thing in that meeting each time you go in there that's going to be valuable to you, then you're not paying attention. And it was beautiful. It's like, and it was like, and it's like, that has stuck with me, and it has, you know, and I realized that
making you responsible for.
Yeah. And one of the things about therapy, and what I've told people before when, you know, they complain about therapists, I mean, first of all, it's like, you know, shop around, get another therapist. And I tell people, I've been to lots of therapy, most of which I volunteered for, I always point out, and all of which I gained something, but because I also figured out, just like, it's like being a good student in school. It's like, you can get something out of a professor who's not that good.
Right.
You know, and I go, so you got, if somebody's going into a treatment program, for instance, a residential treatment program, I get it. It's the luck of the draw who you're going to get for counselors and stuff. There are people, all kinds of people passing around through there. And some of the best people you are ever going to talk to, maybe the night nurse, you know, that's sitting there with you. And you don't know what it is, but basically is, you go in there with the attitude of getting the most out of everybody you meet. And you be that proactive, you be in charge of what you do. And it's like, you know, you could even get good stuff out of a bad therapist.
That's right. Right on, man. That's right. Yeah. So, you know, one of the other thoughts that came to mind when you were sharing earlier, and I'll just take us back a little bit into the earlier part of this conversation, is that I read this one line from, I think it was in Becoming a Person by Carl Rogers. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've read that book. But
I haven't. It's been a long, long time.
It's one of my favorite collections of his writings, because it takes all of these different talks he gave at various points, and he kind of puts them together, and about his experience of working with people in the college setting, and, you know, researching therapy. One of the first people to put a tape recorder in this to the psychotherapist office, because up to that point it was sacrilegious. You didn't, it was like, you don't violate that space. It's like the confession booth, right? You don't put a tape recorder in the confession booth. I mean, you just can't have one in there.
Yeah.
And, you know, nobody recorded therapy because it was like, you wanted to keep this space sacred for a client and stuff. But he wanted to understand what went on, and really to deal with what happened in the therapy rather than what people thought happened. And so he wanted to hear actual recordings, which was just opened up our understanding of the process and all kinds. I mean, he was brilliant, Carl Rogers. But he had this one line about what it meant to be he called it the fully functioning human being, which I love, because I always, what the hell is that, right? Sure wasn't what I thought it was. I
don't remember it. I'm on the edge of my seat right now waiting to hear it. Yeah.
One of the things that he listed on these characteristics, and this is what he discovered in working with all these different clients that he had, was that as a person evolves and gets in touch with who they really are and all that other stuff that he promoted, right?
Yeah.
He says the person becomes a sifter of their own experience.
Wow, I don't remember this. This is good. I like it.
Isn't that a great line? A sifter, you know, it's like that sifter with flour, right? You get all the stuff that's no good, the chunks that you don't want in your cake.
I had a picture of the old miner out in the west.
Yeah, same thing. You know? Looking for that chunk
looking
of
for
gold,
the gold,
right?
you know,
that's
just
another way
a
to think
sparkle.
about all those work. But what he said is that when you get to this place, you don't let somebody else tell you what your experience is or what it means. That you sift through it and you say, this fits for me, this doesn't fit for me. This works for me, this doesn't work for me. I know one of the things that you and I promote a lot, because we want people to experiment, is to try things on. If you've been doing something one way, try it on a different way. See what happens when you do that. It's by doing that in my recovery, when I did it in an experiential exercise or, you know, like following a direction of my sponsor or something like that, I was amazed at some of the awarenesses that, first of all, followed that kind of experience and what it meant to me to open up my consciousness to new possibilities.
Yes, that's a good point because you're talking about the two places. One is, my line always is everything is information. So if you try this and it totally fucks everything up, then we have plenty to work with.
Right.
But the other piece you're talking about is, okay, there's the specific experiment that we're talking about, but the idea of the bigger change in the bigger picture is, I am somebody who has lived my life in a very rigid, stuck way, rules that, I do this. Why do you do this? Well, I do it because I've always done it this way. It's like, what happens when the bigger experiment is, oh, by the way, I have this attitude, a new attitude that says, if one thing doesn't work, I just try another one.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, and I noticed when I said that, I had what I call, it is literally a shrug. I try another one, which is what I've gotten to where I'll tell other therapists, if I'm in a training, I'll say, look for the client who shrugs. It's usually one shoulder or the other, but it's a good sign. What it means is it sort of has this thing of like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I'll try it.
Yeah.
And it's like that by itself is a massive change.
Just try it on.
For most of us.
Try it on. And and most of us are so fixed that we don't live our lives trying things on like that. We get caught in that rut. That we live in. What do they say?
Well, and the thing about
you show an alcoholic a rut, he'll not only move into it, but he'll start decorating it.
Well, of course, my last name is they called me literally for at least 4 years in college was Rut. That's all I was. I don't think anybody knew my first name. I was now I realize the significance of such a thing.
Now you can take that personally. Go back. Jesus Christ! How dare they talk to you like that?
How dare they perceive me in a better way than I can? But to back up one of the things you said too is I like the part in therapy. I like lots of things about therapy, but one of the things, it's really nice because a lot of times we are in the bigger picture, we've kind of taught people in our culture, I think, to I think kind of revere therapists too much or give too much credit to us. And the idea of, first of all, how many people have you ever met that they think when they find out what you do, that you can actually look through them and read their mind? It's like, you go like, yeah, I had to read my mama's mind, but that was a matter of survival.
That's for a different reason.
That's for different reasons. But I love the idea when in the relationship, it begins to sink in for the client that they have the last word. And that's what we consider the right way. It's like, right. No, it's like, if I'm saying, I tell people that I'll say every because you and I have this one in common too. I guess I can get very passionate about something. I can have a theory about something. I can have an idea about something, and I can pitch it like you're going to believe this. But I said, even if I'm doing that, everything I say, no matter how declarative the sentence is it comes with an implied true-false question.
Yeah.
So that basically, if you hear a buzzer in your head somewhere, feel it in your body somewhere that says, you're missing it, Rutledge. It's like tell me, because that's an important thing. It's like if you're, maybe I'm right and you're denying. Okay, fine. We'll find our way there that way. But a lot of the times, I'm just going to have missed it. And it really is going to save us both time and probably save you some money, I'll say sometimes to them, right, if you just tell me if I'm missing it.
Right on. No, and listen, you and I now know that that's what real friendship looks like. Not sitting there and just, going along with and, endorsing every idea that we have just because you want to, he's your friend. I mean, it's those people that's are truth speaking, right? That are really valuable friendships.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's important stuff that we're talking about. Another thing crossed my mind and I totally let it go. But, I was going to come back. One of the other things there was two thoughts. And hopefully the second one will come back to me. But one other one was this idea about what's encounter enhancing and what's encounter diminishing. It's such a great, I think, line to start to think about these rules along, because when we go into the healthy rules, is they're all enhancing a relationship. they all open up possibility. They all encourage the person to live based on what they want and their truth and their integrity and stuff like that. All those other rules that we've been hammering on, those toxic rules, those unhealthy rules, the unenforceable rules, those are so restrictive and constraining, right? They provide so many constraints to a relationship instead of opening it up. And in a relationship it's kind of like, what's the opposite of growing outward? Is it atrophy? It starts to collapse on itself.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a good word. Yeah.
It starts to atrophy. It starts to just close in. And then people get to a place. I loved, this is what I heard Dr. David Snart say. He says, when you walk into a restaurant, you know who's married and you know who's dating. He says, the way you know it is those people that are talking to each other are just dating. They're just meeting each other. They have a lot to say to each other. He says the married couples, they're sitting at the table. Their chairs are typically turned at least 20 or 30 degrees away from each other. They're not saying much at all, other than they ordered the food, a few comments here and there. And he says, now, is it true that they just don't have anything to say to each other because they've been married so long that they've said everything that needs to be said? This is not the case. The truth is they have a lot to say, but they don't say it because they know where it's going to go. It's going to follow the same old pattern, the same old habit of being dismissed, not being looked at, not being taken seriously, or not being explored or whatever. And it's going to end up turning out to be futile, right? It's going to be frustrating. Right. So people don't even bother to bring up anything that they want to really talk about, and they just sit in silence. And he says, and yet their silence is deafening. Because what it's saying is we don't know really how to talk with each other and encourage this kind of a dialogue that you and I are promoting here as we talk about this stuff. And I think he was so right on with this idea because it's so true. It creates a gridlock, all these rules, these unhealthy rules. It's like I said, it atrophies the relationship. And so it gets smaller and smaller. It just reminds me when I was at Cal State Long Beach and I was working on my bachelor's degree. I was there in the 70s, right? And this is when all the men's movement first started out. And Warren Farrell wrote his book, and Herb Greenberg wrote his book about men, and there was this whole big movement of men. And I remember this group got together and they were up on stage and demonstrating all of these issues with men in relationships. And this one guy was dancing with a paper cutout of a gal. And as the dance started out, they were far from each other and talking and enjoying each other. And as the song went on, she's getting closer and closer to him and then closer and closer. And then he starts crumbling her up. Oh, God. It was such a powerful,
beautiful performance art, man.
Wasn't it, man? It was like all these fucking rules, and I'm going to control you and put you in this little ball so I can manage you and possess you. And I'm over there going, fuck, I identify with all this.
Absolutely. That, what you just said, who's the guy that said what he could know when he went into the restaurant? I didn't know the name.
Dr. David Snart.
Spell the last name.
SCHNARCH.
Okay. It's fun to say.
I'm sad to say he passed away about 2 months ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We lost a brilliant. He was the person who translated all of Bowen's differentiation work into sex therapy. And
really?
So he applied all of the stuff on differentiation into helping people deal with sexual difficulties in their marriage. And his book, Passionate Marriage, won him awards at the American Psychological Association. It's I don't know how many millions of copies have been sold, but
it's based on Bowen's stuff.
Based on Bowen's theory of differentiation. And David takes it in his first name is David. He takes it in a particular way, but he was a brilliant therapist, man, a brilliant writer. Some great stuff.
Well, when you described what he said, it's like it just it reminds me of you know how there's some certain little models that just kind of emerge from our work with people. And it's like, I usually draw this up on the blackboard and, you know, but it's like, since we're mostly audio here, it's, you know, what I'll imagine you and I being the relationship. So that I have, this is what I would say to a couple. I have a little Alan interpreter in my head and you have a Thom interpreter. And what I'll say to couples who've been together a long time is you got a bit of a problem here. I always say, I don't know the actual percentage, but just to make the point, I call it the 85% accuracy problem, which is we get to know each other so well that we're probably right most of the time. Yeah. It's like, but it's that 15%. It's like, and the idea is whenever we get into one of those areas, and like, this is the thing that you were saying, that David was saying keeps people from having that conversation, is because I will say XYZ to you, your interpreter says he means ABC, and you respond as if I said ABC. And what I point out to people about that is like, you look at that, that's two moves in the communication and you're already gone. It's like you're lost. Yeah, it's like,
and trying to get back here is repairing that. And most couples don't know how to do that because they get more polarized.
Well, and that's the piece where, when we talk about the rules, the positive rules and stuff like that, we'll talk about that too. But because that's another thing that I think I probably have honed in on in the last even decade of my work with couples is how much it's really just about helping them keep their defenses down. Because if you can, a lot of times when I'm working with couples, I have my hands up. I feel like a bit of a conductor in an orchestra because I'm actually holding the defenses down and say, you know, because the truth is, if you can, because defense begets defense. So as soon as I say something defensive to you, you know, if you're really paying attention, you can get it, you can catch it. But it's like, if you're not paying attention, you're going to come back with another defense, and we're going to have 2 or 3, you know, volleys like that, and it's going to get difficult to come back. But what it's amazing to me, and I love showing this to couples, if you can keep your defenses down just for a couple of sentences more, you can find clarification. I didn't mean it that way. That's not what I meant. It's like, instead of, oh, well, yes, you did, which is what a lot of people do. It's like, if you can actually keep your defense down, go like, oh, okay, well, how did you mean it? Yeah. And then you listen. Yeah. Now we're back. But it's so hard, but it's, I mean, it really is one of those simple, not easy.
I look forward to when we do the rules. That'll be the healthy rules. That'll be a fun.
Good.
All right, well, let's wrap this show. My daughter's coming out to celebrate her 36th birthday, so I'm very excited to see her in a couple of minutes. So how do they learn more about your work, Thom?
They can intuit it, or they could go to my website.
Read your mind. Now, why aren't they reading my mind, right? Come on.
They can go to my website, tomrutledge.com, books and all kinds of freebies and stuff there. And I'll tell you, these days, what they can do to learn more about all of us in this show is go to, if they're on Instagram, to go join us on Instagram. We are on Instagram, and our handle there is a little bit different than the name of our podcast, but it's Start Here Radio. It's like Start Here Radio, and you're there, I'm there, Patrick's there, and I would love to get more people following us there. I love playing with Instagram.
Yeah. So let me put a shout out to the work we're going to do here next Thursday, the next couple Thursdays, step 2.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited.
Thursday night Emotional Sobriety Anonymous meeting, which the Zoom ID for that is 330-149-513. And the password 375986 is on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And just a couple weeks ago, we started to go through the steps as they relate to emotional sobriety. And I'm going to be doing about a 15-20 minute discussion of this step. And then Tom's going to come in and take 10 minutes to discuss what I've discussed and anything else he wants to say. And we're going to alternate like that through the whole steps with Thom and Mary Gordon. And it's turning out to be great. And I look forward to our work this coming Thursday.
Yep, I appreciate you including me in that one. I love Mary's work too. So
Mary was fantastic, and I'm
she's
looking
amazing.
forward to you talking about it, and we get to tackle step 2, which is a very important step in the whole process. So please join us there. And look, if you like our podcast, tell people about it. If you don't, tell people about it. See, we have no rules. You don't have to tell.
That's right. Just go like, you won't believe how bad this is. Go listen for yourself.
Go listen for yourself. I mean, hey, in Hollywood, all press is good press.
That's right. Well, it's like if something smells bad, what do? Hey, smell this. You know.
We do that, don't you? Does it smell bad to you? Is it just into me? Yeah. So if it smells bad, let other people smell it.
Let other people smell it.
No, but tell people how much fun we're having here, and we also appreciate the feedback we've got that you guys really get something out of this, and that's very meaningful for Thom and I. Is that when we went into this isolating as a community to deal with this COVID, is one of the things Thom and I really wanted to do was to try to carry a message and to help people get through this, and to use this time to create what I love. He said is we're having a big personal growth retreat.
That's right. Involuntary personal growth retreat.
And this is our contribution to that personal growth.
That's right. That's right.
And we hope that you guys found it helpful, continue to find it helpful as we trudge this road of happy destiny together. Patrick, any last words for this show for you?
Yes, I'll be including the Zoom login info and the password for the emotional sobriety meeting this coming Thursday or the next few Thursdays in the episode description. So if you missed it in the episode, be sure and check it out there. And we hope to see you in the weeks to come.
Good. Thanks.
All right. Great working with you guys today. Good, very good show. I am feeling better. I can feel it in my body. Wow, that's great.
Good.
Okay, you guys. Good seeing you. And Thom, I'll look forward to Thursday night.
I'll be there.
It's a spiral, not a circle. Goes round, round, round. Look for solutions, be your own friend. Never say never in either direction. Look in the mirror, trust the reflection.